What's up, guys? Welcome to the ACE It podcast. My name is Bauer Brown, co-founder, lead instructor of ACE Interdiction Tactics, one of law enforcement's fastest growing training companies in the nation, specializing in bringing our cops to the best proactive training. If you have not checked out any of our classes, go to aceinterdiction.com, look at the list of classes that we have coming up, get registered, and make yourself better.
Welcome, everybody, to the ACE It podcast. I'm Bauer Brown, here with good friend, co-owner of the company, Al Clark. And with us, we have one of our good friends, previous ACE It student, Nathan Ostertag. Thanks for being with us, buddy, and not even volunteering. I basically told you, hey, you're going to be on the podcast, whether you like it or not. And I appreciate you doing that for us. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, man.
Well, let's just get right into it, Nathan. We've been friends with you for a couple of years. We've trained with you. You've been to the ACE It training. We've followed your success in interdiction. You're out there. You're killing it. You're doing great work. Unfortunately, you've kind of fallen into the common route of having to jump off of interdiction for a while and go take some patrol calls, which sucks. We had to do that for a while as well. But going back to full-time interdiction, correct? Pretty soon?
Yep. And about 2 weeks, we go back to full-time interdiction work. So I'm pretty amped for that.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That's good news, man. Well, tell us about yourself. Tell us who Nathan Ostertag is. Give us a little bit of your background before law enforcement and now getting into law enforcement and what you're doing with your career.
For sure. I was born in the South. I was born in Kentucky, raised out in Los Angeles, came out to Arizona to go to Arizona State University.
Nice.
Worked pretty much every kind of job, blue collar, white collar, worked corporate banking, hated all of them. Got into law enforcement in 2019 and kind of jumped off from there. I worked for a smaller sheriff's office in northern Arizona, but luckily we're right along I-40 and a bunch of the state routes. So interdiction is plentiful.
That's awesome, dude. Tell us a little bit more about that conversion, because you said you worked all types of jobs, from blue collar, white collar, then boom, law enforcement. Had you always been interested in being a cop, or is that something that came kind of later on when you started realizing, man, these jobs kind of suck?
Yeah, I mean, definitely later on. I was not as pro law enforcement when I was in my youth. I was a little punk kid, but I had a cousin who joined the Minnesota State Police, and it kind of got me thinking, and I like the camaraderie of law enforcement. If you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us, and I like that mindset. So, dropped some apps, and the county that picked me up was the first one to call me and said, come up and test, and I jumped right on it.
That's awesome.
And were you living in the area in which you work at that time, or were you living somewhere else?
No, I didn't even know the area in which I work existed until I came up and tested. To be
and you just took the first one.
It was like, I'll work wherever, and then if I decide I want to go somewhere else later, I can always lateral, but I figured I might as well get my foot in the door with the first agency that gets shot. So
absolutely, dude. So tell us now, like you said, you got into law enforcement, and then eventually everybody makes this transition on kind of what they want to do in their law enforcement career. You know, you got a lot of people that are like, man, I got into law enforcement because I want to go SWAT. I got into law enforcement because I want to be a detective, you know, and obviously you got into the more canine side and interdiction side, as well as SWAT. But tell us how you kind of, you know, transformed more into that type of police work.
Right. Yeah. So when I first became a cop, all I wanted to do was grow a beard, go plain clothes, and kick in doors. That's the only thing I thought. I remember actually my now Sergeant Danny coming to my academy and teaching us about canines. Like, I can barely feed myself. I don't want a dog. Like, that sounds horrible, you know. But then I hit the road. I started getting some grams, worked my way up to pounds. And then I realized that canine, I felt bad calling my buddy Danny out every time. And I wanted a dog of my own, so that way I could just pop my back door and run him instead of having to call somebody out.
Yeah, that is the most frustrating thing. I'll never forget when I first started interdiction. I went to my first training, and then I go out the next day, make all these stops, you know, tons of failures. And then I stopped one car, and everything that I learned was there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think this is loaded. So what do? Hey, can I have consent to search your car? And they're like, you know what? You know, we'd rather not. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I think this is loaded. Well, the driver of the car was not the owner. The passenger was the owner. All right. So the driver of the car, I run him. He comes back with warrants. And when he comes back with warrants, it's child support warrants, extraditable. And I'm like, okay. So I arrest the driver, but I still couldn't get in the car because the passenger is the RO. And he's like, I'm out of here. You know, peace out. So I take the driver back and I book him. And during booking, we run a CCH on him, and he comes back for priors of transportation of over like 500 pounds of marijuana on a traffic stop out of Texas. And I was like, oh no, like that was the first time. So similar to you, when they denied consent, I had the only canine available in Apache County was Al, who was an hour and a half away on Interstate 40.
Right.
And I just knew that was an impossibility for me at that time. If I would have known what I know now, I would have called you and been like, you don't have a choice.
Just come down here
and run your dog. And that's what kind of got me same way, like you said. I wasn't that interested in handling a dog until I was put in that situation where I didn't have one where I needed one. And I was like, okay, I got to get a dog.
Right.
And, kind of changed the way.
It starts out kind of like a tool on your belt, right?
Yep.
That's something you start into this line of work and you're like, well, I need that. That would be handy for me to have. But tell me, how is it now? Now that you're a handler, like, let's talk about your dog a little bit. And are you more obsessed with canine now than you used to be? Is it still just a tool?
No, I can't imagine not being a canine at this point. It's way too much fun. It's opened up a lot of doors in law enforcement for me. We're the primary canine on our SWAT team. We do have another canine who just came up on the SWAT team, so he's been getting some reps in too. But yeah, my dog, he's going on 5 years old. He's a Czech Shepherd, speaks Czech, so I talk to him in Czech.
Nice.
He's a big boy. You guys have met him.
Yes. Hard biter.
About 120-pound Czech Shepherd, head as big as a bear, and mean on the bite, dope dog 100% all the way through. Like, that dog loves finding dope. And we are on fentanyl odor now too, so it's been really helpful.
Oh, nice. What odors is he on?
We're still running 5. Well, we were running 4 odor dogs, and now we're 5 odor dogs. So we still run coke, meth, heroin, marijuana, and fentanyl. And I know people don't like running marijuana dogs in 2023, but the way we look at it is it's still illegal to transport large amounts of marijuana, and we're not running it for like just, oh, yeah, some local who we think has a little bit of weed on him. It's all the signs are there. I ask very explicitly. I let them know, hey, in Arizona, you can have up to an ounce of marijuana legally. Do you have any marijuana over an ounce? No. Do you have any marijuana under an ounce? No. Does anyone smoke marijuana in the car? No, no one does any of that. So now when my dog runs it and alerts to it, don't come back and tell me, oh, yeah, I had, 2 grams in it the other day, because we've already gone over that. I told you exactly what I was looking for. So
Right.
Yeah, that's a huge topic among the canine world and law enforcement right now. Even with fentanyl, oh my gosh, fentanyl is legal.
Right.
Marijuana, oh my gosh, it's legal. But what they don't understand is this is going through the courts and nothing crazy is coming up. Like, they're accepting this that we've seen in Arizona so far.
Excuse me.
So, and people don't realize too, like, look at California, one of the first states to legalize weed, and they are even still running marijuana dogs. Nevada still has marijuana dogs. And it's all about, like you said, Nate, is more of articulating that it's more than personal use in the car, and everything seems to be flying so far.
Right. I think it's the same argument, either flavor. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Whether you're talking fentanyl or marijuana, I mean, right now it's the same argument.
Yeah. Maybe one of these days we're going to see U.S. Supreme Court case law come out that has Nate Ostertag's name in it, Deputy Ostertag, but that'd be really cool.
It would be.
Hopefully it's positive. If it's one of mine, I can only assume it's going to be positive. But
so tell us about your interdiction career so far, man. We've been following you. You work the same road as us. We network with you quite a bit. Let's get into the stop that basically I wanted you on the podcast for. Let's automatically get that open and talk about that. Recently, you conducted a traffic stop where a young child was in the car, and based on your observations after a civil traffic violation, you became suspicious that a little bit more was going on. And can you kind of give us a rundown on, how it went? Obviously, the case is still ongoing. We understand you can't share a whole lot of details, but basically give us, your side of the story.
Yeah, for sure, man. So working interdiction on Interstate 40, car comes up, immediate reaction to my presence. You guys teach that in your class. Immediate reaction to my presence. And the reaction to my presence, boom, automatically committed multiple traffic violations, failed to properly signal his lane change. He's immediately tailgating. So I pull out on him, get a stop for civil traffic violations, get him out of the car, start talking to him. He's immediately trying to alter my perception of him. I'm just a farm worker, except he's all blinged out, right? He's wearing all kinds of jewelry and stuff like that, just not consistent with this story. We continue talking, and there's a small boy in the front seat of the car. And I thought one that was kind of odd that he's sitting up front, but it makes sense in hindsight because he wants you to see him, right? He wants, oh, yeah, we're cool. He says, that's my son. He's 11 years old. Gives me a name that matches his last name. I go talk to the boy. Boy says, that's my uncle. Gives a different last name and says he's 10 years old. So obviously, immediately, all the red flags are going off for me.
Oh, absolutely.
Wow.
And what's happening here to our listeners is you're seeing an officer who's trained in criminal interdiction, who's looking beyond going out there, stopping cars and writing a ticket. What happens is people in the civilian world get stopped by police and they're immediately frustrated. And what they don't realize is these traffic stops that we utilize are far more useful than just generating some type of funds because we wrote you a ticket. We use this as a tool to intercept criminal activity.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is like the ultimate reason and why we do this.
Exactly. Right. Putting 40 kilos on the hood is really cool. Like 40 kilos of cocaine. This is awesome. Saving a life such as this, especially a child's life, that is exactly why.
Yeah, that really hits you in the heart.
Yeah, man. What do you think? Yeah. What do you think would have happened? I mean, do you have any idea or any other information on, where this kid was going or where they were headed to, or?
So, investigations ongoing. Well, I'll just say that driver initially stated one Midwestern state. Then later he advised a different Midwestern state. The child, when asked where his family lived, gave a southern state, which was multiple states away from where driver was saying they were headed. So there's really no way to tell at this point. The kid's in the care of law enforcement at this point while they try to reconnect him with his family. But
nice.
Perfect.
Yeah, we have no idea where he was truly headed for.
Right. Well, I got to commend you, man. That's an excellent job done. And to pick up on that and to pay attention to the things that are going on. I mean, that's badass. You did a hell of a job on that. That really gets me in the heart. I mean, you love to hear stories of success and you love to hear, and everybody likes them trophy shots and the kilos and all this stuff. But I'm telling you, man, that's heartbreaking that this is going on, and you were able to intercept this and put a stop to it, man. I mean, there's just no words for that.
Yeah, dude. So it reminds me of, do you remember there was like a huge movement on social media? Was it called like the Me Too movement, talking about like sex trafficking?
Yes.
And, all this, stuff that's going on and why isn't law enforcement, like law enforcement kind of took a hit. Like, why aren't you guys doing anything about this?
Mm-hmm.
I'll never forget that there was a post on social media of a friend of mine, and she posted that she was posting several things about the Me Too movement, right? About the sex trafficking and why isn't anything happening and why isn't the FBI involved and all this stuff, right? So she would post this over and over. And then I remember specifically seeing a post probably, 2 days or 3 days after she had posted about the Me Too movement. And it said, just stopped by California Highway Patrol because my window tint was too dark. And she blew up on how she was just stopped for her window tint. And don't the cops have anything better to do? And I remember getting on there and commenting, hey, did he give you a ticket? And she's like, well, no, he didn't give me a ticket. But can you believe that's what he stopped me for? And she is a prime example of not knowing that we utilize traffic stops to uncover the big stuff, such as sex trafficking, which she was complaining about, 2 days prior on social media. So,
well, that brings up a real quick point. How many citations? I mean, we were talking about this, but how many tickets have you written?
I mean, I think maybe 2 in 2 years.
Well, I was going to say, so is that your primary thing?
Right.
No, I mean, one was a weapons violation where he basically made me write him a ticket instead of taking him to jail.
Right.
And the other one was just cool. But no, if you get stopped by me, it's 99.99% chance you're getting a warning. And I'm not stopping you because, it's a means for us to start talking about something else. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I'm pulling the stop to conduct a further investigation. But
right.
Protection of stops are legal via case law. So
right. Yep. Definitely can use that and uncover information as you go, contemporaneous to the mission of the stop. And that's what you did here, which is a huge deal. And that's what interdictors all over the world are doing, looking beyond the ticket and looking further into, hey, let's arrest some criminals. All right. No more tickets to the soccer moms.
Right.
Let's arrest felons.
Yep.
And that's a great story. And I love it.
Yeah. I mean, when I pull a stop, there's two results: a warning or bracelets. There's really no other way it's going to go. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's good, man. So leading up to that stop in your career, what type of training have you attended and, invested in of yourself? And how important has it been to you in your career?
Absolutely instrumental. So, I mean, I was fortunate in that my department sent me to your guys' training. I think it was one of your first classes back in like the fall of 2020.
Yep.
Right.
I got the most traffic stops in the couple months prior. And they said, well, what do you want as a reward? I said, I want to go to this class. I got to your class, and that's when my mindset shifted from pulling stops for stats or like pulling stops for warnings or tickets or just to like make the brass happy versus pulling stops to pop loads, to get felony arrests, to get guns off the street. After I attended your guys' class, I actually dropped, at least a couple of thousand of my own dollars because I was still a baby cop at the time. So they weren't going to be sending me to a whole bunch of trainings at that point. So I proactively spent my own money, continued to be successful, get some proactive loads as a baby cop. And then I was lucky enough to test and get K9, and at which point I started getting sent to a lot more trainings. So, I mean, I've got hundreds of hours of interdiction trainings at this point. And I learned something new at every single one. And I've tried to implement that into my stops every single time. And it's definitely shown in my results.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say this speaks volumes of his character. I mean, it meant so much to you that you spent your own money and invested in yourself to be able to obtain training and to pursue your career. And I know there's officers that have to do that, and it's unfortunate that you have to. It's a double-edged sword in my mind. It's unfortunate that the agency just doesn't take care of you. And I'm not speaking bad about your agency. I'm just in agencies as a whole. Yeah. They do this across the country. But the other side of the coin is like, how awesome is the officer and how driven is he for seeing that he needs that and seeing and have that desire to better himself and taking the initiative, even if it costs him some money out of his own pocket to go seek that training.
Yep. There's one common denominator between all the successful cops that I've seen in my career, and it all leads back to the amount of training that they go to. And that brings me to another point that we agree with you in the fact of, yes, ACE is a law enforcement training company. So technically our other, proactive training companies are competition. I guess in a business sense, yes, but at the same time, we don't care because we're not the end all be all. Go to all the training you can get. Like you said, I think it's important that you go to everybody, learn all the perspective and get as much training as possible.
Absolutely. Is there any training that you've had specifically for human smuggling or exploited children or anything like that?
Yeah. So actually, just prior to this stop, I'd attended multiple human trafficking and sex trafficking trainings. So it was definitely beneficial as far as recognizing some warning signs, as far as the relationship between the pair of them. But it all goes back to your basic interdiction. Your guys' class, you separate, get the driver out. That's the first thing when I ask, or when I have other cops come to me and say, like, what should I do? I want to do interdiction. What do I need to do? My first question is, do you get the driver out? Well, no. Well, how the hell are you going to get reasonable suspicion if the driver's sitting in his car, you're sitting in your car?
Right.
And he's just shooting the shit with the passenger. Sorry for my language. Like, get them out, separate them. And then the amount of times that their stories are just astronomically different is insane. Like, whether it be a drug load or, in this case, a recovery of a human trafficked child, their stories weren't even close, which you'll never find out if you're in your car banging out a ticket while they're sitting in their car.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I think it's interesting when we talk about training, and then you touched on this a little bit, Al, as far as agencies go of sending their officers to training. We just talked about this on the last podcast, and I think it's going to be a reoccurring topic,
right,
as we have these podcasts. But I think what's interesting is I knew of an agency at one point where an officer was out there being proactive, and due to his proactivity and covering calls at the same time, he was down on his reports. And I'm not talking, 30, 40 reports down. I'm talking like commonly, like what the normal police officers down, let's say 3 or 4.
Right.
Right. And this agency was like, you will not go to training until you're caught up on these reports. And I thought that was interesting, that the mode of discipline that they were going to implement there was denying him of training.
Right.
Now, whatever that training was, whether it was jujitsu or tactical training, interdiction training, there's several benefits to training, not just to the officer, but to the agency, right? So let's take interdiction, for example, like we talked about on the last podcast. Your agency pays $279 for you to attend a 2-day interdiction training. During that training, you understand what reasonable suspicion is. Now you know when you cannot detain somebody. And instead of you detaining somebody wrongfully and ending up in $1 million lawsuit, your agency just paid $279. Invest that in you. You understand what that is, and you're not going to end up in $1 million lawsuit because you know what reasonable suspicion is.
Correct.
It's an investment, and I think agencies need to look at it more that way.
Well, they don't have a problem investing in equipment, but training is a much needed thing, and to stay sharp. I mean, your career, when you first started, you wanted to make a lot of stops. You got rewarded for that, but look how it's changed with training and you deciding what direction you want to take your career and being very successful at it. But I mean, it's changed you. And I feel like, you're a cop for life. And you're going to be, and as long as the agency, you're happy, you're going to be there. I mean, it's like, it's a way to invest in your people and keep them happy, keep them trained, keep them in the game that they want to be in.
Right.
And successful.
Yep. I think it's funny too is, sorry to cut you off, Nate, but I was thinking, you're a canine handler, and oftentimes what agencies will do is they spend a lot of money on your canine, a lot of agency on sending you to the canine training, you learning how to run a dog and getting that dog certified on everything that Kilo, is it named Kilo, right? Your dog?
Kilo. Yep. That's my dog.
Is certified on, and then not invest anything in the handler. So basically they're saying, hey, you got a dog now, go find dope. But then they don't send you to any type of interdiction training. They expect the dog to be the hero in this case. Now, with that being said, I'm sure Kilo has helped you get drugs off the roads. But did Kilo play any part in this recent stop of finding human trafficking?
No. And I'll say, while canine is super beneficial to interdiction, it's not a must have. I know guys, including guys on my department, I'm thinking 1 patrol or 2 patrol deputies in particular, they don't have dogs. They've popped dozens of pounds of hard dope on stops where they were reacting to, what limited training they've got, or they've learned from just watching YouTube videos because they're still patrol cops. So they don't have the benefits of going to all the trainings and, different types of conferences that I do. They're just learning from what they can glean off the internet or podcasts or stuff like that. Yeah. And they're going out and getting after it. I mean, they're stopping cars I'm not even sure I would have stopped and pulling, record loads out of them. So I think it's nice to have a dog, but I've popped loads where they can scent and Kilo never even gets out of the truck. And I get back to the office and they're like, oh, let's get the trophy shot with the dog. Oh, no, the dog, he didn't do anything. But,
yeah.
So,
help.
Yeah, but as far as human smuggling goes, as far as some weapons and some felony warrants, stuff like that, that's stuff where it's the training, not the dog. And I want to be clear, since becoming a canine handler, I've pretty much been sent to any training that I want to go to. But I know at other departments, they're sending their guys to all these patrol canine trainings, but not a whole lot of interdiction trainings. And they're like, why aren't you getting any dope? Exactly. Because they don't know what they're looking for. Right? How are you going to know what to do on an interdiction traffic stop if you haven't been in any interdiction training? You're kind of just out there winging it.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yep. That's definitely happened. One of the things that kind of switching gears here that we've noticed in teaching all over the nation is how cops are responding to the negativity in today's perception of law enforcement. And ever since I've known you, I know we were talking before we went live here, but ever since I've known you, you've been a real positive guy. What keeps you positive?
Well, first I lift regularly. So
Lift heavy things, check.
Yeah, lift heavy things. Yeah, just move heavy round circles. Realistically, man, like it doesn't bother me. Like I'm gonna go out there and do what I do, whether you like me or not. And when I'm on a traffic stop, I am the nicest guy. Like if you watch any of my body cam footage, like me and this driver are the best of friends. Boom, I hit my interdiction questions and there's like deer in the headlights. Like they thought for sure they were just getting their warning and being on their way. They didn't realize that I was gleaning information from them the entire time. So it doesn't bother me. At the end of the day, if people don't like law enforcement, they're not going to like law enforcement. I've stopped cars where it's immediate cell phones in my face and people telling me to go F myself, and it doesn't bother me. I'm still going to have you get out of the car. Pennsylvania v. MEMS. The amount of times I've had to tell people like, hey, you're going to get out of the car. You can look up the case law when we're done, but I'm not going to argue with you. You're going to step out. As long as you're backed by case law, as long as you're within your department policy, as long as you're not doing things out of spite or out of anger, I don't see how you're going to get yourself jammed up. So,
yes, that's perfect. I'm glad that you mentioned that because a big part of our 2-day class is teaching people and helping them understand how to talk to people, and that you don't need to be a dick in order to, get it to be a cop. Like, stop being a dick. This is 101 in law enforcement.
There's a time and a place, but I mean, it's not all the time, man.
It's not all the time, man. And I think that there's a lot of cops out there that just have this idea that that's what they need to be. It's just not the case.
I just want to say again, here is another example of a proactive cop that's happy, that's sound, exactly. That's, loves his job, goes out and is successful at his job and is positive, and confident. I see confidence in your work. I mean, I followed you and watched you kind of develop, if you will, throughout your career so far. And it's like you see people just gain confidence as they start to get training, as they start to understand their jobs and they start to understand case law and how it works. And they understand, like you said, you're going to take them and have them come out and you're confident. I'm right. I know what I'm doing is right. And you're going to listen to me. We're going to go through with this. You don't have to get angry. You don't have to be super dick, but at the same time, you're confident. And where's that confidence come from? It comes from knowledge and training and execution. And again, I just want to point out, Bauer, that we're looking at a successful, proactive cop and a happy cop.
Happy cop.
Yeah. And you see it. I mean, it's just something we just keep seeing. Yep. This negativity and this, everybody knows the guy that needs to just retire. He's retired on duty and so negative. And then you have the guys that are out putting people in jail. And is it successful every day? I mean, do you find success every single day? Interdiction's hard.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm out there searching empty cars a lot. You know what I mean? Like I'll get consent, everything, all this. I'm so positive that this car is loaded, right? Snap consent. Okay, it doesn't mean anything. Like people snap consent when they got a trunk full of meth, Right. Then it's 120 degrees out. I'm dripping sweat under their seats and come up dry. You know, and it's frustrating. You do that for a couple weeks, and you're like, I don't even know if I know what I'm doing out here.
Exactly.
And then you pop one, and you're like, okay, I do know what I'm doing. It's just sometimes you're in the peaks, and sometimes you're in the lulls. Like there's a couple months where I couldn't miss. It was like every second stop I made was loaded or had some criminal activity going on. And then it'd be 3 months of just freaking nothing. And it's like, it's frustrating for sure, but you got to remember, like, the highs are super high. Like,
oh, yeah.
Dude.
When you get the good one, like, I mean, it's, we do criminal interdiction and drug interdiction, but getting those loads is is a high. So,
oh, it is. You can't just get one.
No, I got my first one. I'm like, oh, I'm screwed. Like, I can't imagine going like, there's nothing wrong with, I know there's people who don't have the benefit of having major interstates coming through their region. Right. And you might be stopping that local dope, a couple grams or an ounce or a couple ounces. So you might not have that experience of popping a trunk and seeing those pounds packed up. Right. But it doesn't matter. Like you stop that car for traffic violations. You did the investigation the right way, and it resulted in a proactive felony arrest. You didn't get called disorderly where the guy's already there, right? You went out and found it. And I think that's the part that I love the most is the hunt, right? He's trying to get past me. I stopped him. I busted him. You lost, right? And I don't win every day, but when I do win, it feels pretty damn good.
Well, you know, it really is. It's a planned event. It's cat and mouse. I mean, they spend their time trying to hide and find or disguise everything, conceal it, and we're trying to find it, and we're trying to find them. Which leads me on to my next question, Nate. Is so what keeps you in the grind? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going out there?
Besides what I just said, it's the specific stops that I remember when I'm out there whiffing it. I remember my first load. The feeling I had from that was the highest of highs, right? This most recent one where when I stopped it, I didn't know what I had. It's, I knew that he was reacting to my presence. I knew that something was going on, the drug side of you wants you to be, oh man, I hope this trunk is loaded, right? And then I had to switch gears because I realized that the load wasn't in the trunk, it was in the passenger seat, right? I think just remembering why you're out there to save kids, you're out there to get dope, and you're out there to get money, guns, whatever have you. But I think people, and I've been asked this, like, you guys are barely scratching the surface, right? Like you're getting these huge drug loads, but on the grand scale of things, like how much are you really doing? And the way I look at it is, you stop a fentanyl load, someone might not overdose tonight. They might get their drug tomorrow, but tonight I bought them one more day, right? So it's that you don't know how many lives you're saving when you're going out there and being proactive. So that's why I go and do it, because I want to be at least as much of a change as I can be during my law enforcement career.
I think that's huge, man. I think what drives, cops, proactive cops is, like you were talking about, the win or the reward. And, we've been on this kick since we started ACIT that the proactive cop is a healthy cop. And the cop that's putting 40 kilos on the hood is not discouraged. Find me a cop that's mad about putting 40 kilos on the hood. And it's unfortunate that when you become cops, it's not everything that we thought it was going to be. And you got to deal with a lot of the bullshit that you don't want to deal with. And because of that, you need to go out there, be proactive, run into cases like this, and then you're going to re-find your purpose. You're going to be re-driven. You're going to realize that the negativity is all bullshit. We don't need to, be in the middle of that. Let's go out, find bad guys, put them in jail. And once again, we found our purpose again. Like we realize why we do this job, right?
Beautifully said. Yep. I agree 100%.
It is, man. Well, with that being said, we'll give us a couple more of your memorable stops in interdiction. What are some of the things that stick out to you? Some of the cases that stick out to you in your interdiction career?
I mean, besides the one that we just talked about, I've got two that I can think of. One would be my first load. I was actually still a baby cop. I don't think I'd had a year off of FTO. Me and another canine officer who was actually the former handler for my dog, Theo, we were out there hunting, and I'd been pulling 30, 40 stops a month, getting gram squad, right? Like I'm getting feeling it's 8 balls, it's maybe a couple pounds of weed, and I'm just like, my God, dude, like I feel like I'm not doing anything out here. I pulled out on one car, and as I'm trying to catch up to it, I look right, and this guy's just 10 and 2, just burning a hole in his windshield. I could tell in his head, he's like, I'm invisible right now. Like, please do not see. Ended up getting him stopped for improper lane change, which it frustrates me when people say chicken shit stops. There's no such thing. Like,
right.
Stopping the car for a purpose. That one ended up being a half a pound of DMT, a firearm, and like 10 pounds of wax or something like that.
Wow.
So nothing major on the grand scale, but I was hooked, right? The second one would be single male occupant in a minivan, immediate reaction to my presence. And I'm like, single male occupant in a minivan coming eastbound. This van's full of weed, right? Get them stopped, pull them out. I smell weed. I'm like, okay, weed load. Get them back, run them. 38 franc indictment warrant. So he never even been to court. He'd been indicted and was wanted out of Texas for molesting his young daughter. So the marshals had been looking for him down in Phoenix, and I got him on a traffic stop. They called me asking how I found him. It was reaction to my presence and just proactivity. He ended up getting extradited within like a couple days back to Texas to face charges. And again, there wasn't no trophy shot, right? Like there wasn't all the attaboys. I mean, there was a lot of attaboys, but it's not the picture with the dog, right? But those are the ones that stick out, the ones where they involve kids or major crimes that are committed other than just drug trafficking or stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And once again, from a traffic stop.
Yeah. Proactive.
Being proactive.
And being aware. I mean, you keep talking about they reacted to my presence. I mean, I love that. It's paying attention to what's going by you and not on Facebook, not visiting, not on the phone talking to somebody, like actually paying attention and watching what's going by you. Good job. Yeah,
I think observations, like one of my favorite quotes that we often refer to, and it's on the back of our shirt, is one from Sherlock Holmes that says, "I see no more than you, but I've trained myself to notice what I see." And basically what that quote is saying is we're all seeing the same thing. The difference between me and you is that I notice what I see and I can articulate what I see and ultimately come to a conclusion based on what I see. And you won't reach that conclusion because you're not noticing what you're seeing.
Yes.
Essentially is what the quote's saying. One of my favorite quotes, I live by it. And observation skills is a paramount skill that you have to have as an interdiction officer. Another skill that I think you have to have is the ability to talk to people. And then you couple that with hard work and coachable. Right then and there, you put those things together and you can create a good interdiction officer. Some skills that I've seen as common denominators between a lot of very successful cops out there.
Right. Agreed.
Cool. Well, with that being said, Nate, is there anything else that you want to bring up?
No, I just want to thank the guys who took the time when I was a baby cop to teach me interdiction. You guys at my first training, and then Danny, who's my now interdiction sergeant. Jake with Arizona DPS. I followed that guy on all of his traffic stops, and I was like basically sitting in his back pocket when he was talking to people. I'm sure I just bugged the crap out of him. And then my boy Theo, who was Keel's former handler, he sniffed that first load for me, and he again was right there in the meeting with me while we were both striking out and being successful. So I just want to say appreciate you guys, because without those people and a whole lot more people, I want to be where I am. So I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you, man, and we really appreciate you saying that. All those guys that you mentioned, man, are all good dudes.
Heavy hitters, man.
And heavy hitters, great people. Matt Theo just decided he's going to leave us. So if you're listening to this, Matt Theo, shame on you. We miss you.
We miss you over here.
Such a good dude. Yep. Well, thanks for joining us, Nate.
Thank you.
Keep it up out there. We'll talk later. We'll talk much more about getting together and doing some interdiction details together, and we can all learn from each other, learn from you, and see what we can get into. Super excited about it.
Oh, yeah. And I want to hear the details of the case as it plays out.
Most definitely. Yeah, I'll keep you guys in the loop, and I'm sure we'll find plenty of good times out there on the 40 and on the back roads too, because that's heavy in the back roads. But
absolutely. Very good point.
Yeah, y'all have a good one.
All right. You as well. See ya.